This video is all about modal verb should, which is a small but quite powerful word in English. We can use it to offer advice, make recommendations, share expectations, express obligation or regret, or even talk about probability. Non-native speakers sometimes find it difficult to understand it. So, I want to help you all to understand how and where to use should correctly, and that will in turn improve your writing and speaking skills in English. Welcome, I'm Seema from Edufinite. If you have any queries, you can ask me in the comments section. Without much ado, let's delve into the topic. Should, the modal verb. So, should is a modal verb, and that means it does not have to be conjugated in accordance to the subject of the sentence. That means in a sentence, if we use should, it will not change its form, like it will not add an S behind it, or it will not have an ing added to it, or neither will it have ed added to it. It will remain as it is whenever we use it with any subject. That means whether it's in the first person, whether it's in the second person, whether it's in the third person, should will not change its form. It will remain should always. And since it's a modal verb, it will need a helping verb with it. Moreover, should serves as the past form of the modal verb shall. Now let's look into the basic structure of a sentence when we use should. So the basic structure will be as subject, then we'll have should, then we'll have the main verb, because should is a modal verb, so it's a helping verb. So it will need the help of a main verb, which will tell us what action is taking place. And that verb, you have to keep in mind, will always be in the base form or the V1 form. That means bare infinitive, without the to. So that's the criteria, and then you write the rest of the sentence. That's the basic structure of an affirmative sentence using the modal verb should. Now let's look into some of the sentences to understand the structure more elaborately. They should try the new Japanese restaurant. So here it's according to the structure. They is the subject, which is third person, and then you have should, as I said, and then the main verb should be in the V1 or the base form, and here try is the main verb which is in the base form, then the rest of the sentence, the new Japanese restaurant. So this is the basic structure while using should. And you have to remember one more thing, while pronouncing should, L is silent. So it's almost like would, but W being W-O-O-D, but the W being replaced by SH. So it's SH-O-O-D, something like that. The pronunciation is should. There is no pronunciation of the letter L. Okay, now the next thing is he should be wearing his seat belt. So see, here the subject is third person singular, but should remains should. And then we have the base form of the main verb, which is be. So he should be wearing his seat belt. Okay, the next one is, suppose we have to ask a question, then in that case, what do? We interchange the position of should with subject. So should goes first, then the subject, and then just as we maintain the rest of the sentence. Should we accompany you to the mall? So the next one is when we ask a question with a WH word or with a questioning word. So that comes first, and then we have should, and then the subject, and then the main verb, and then the rest of it. So where should I park the car? Okay. Now, if we have a negative thing to say, then we attach not to it, and it can be contracted. Should is never contracted. Should remains should. But if we attach not to it, it gets contracted. So you can say you shouldn't wash the light and the dark clothes together. So this is more or less the structure of modal verb should in a sentence. Now let's look into where we can use it. So should has numerous uses and they are as follows. For advice and recommendation. So we can use it while giving advice to somebody or while recommending something. So we can use should. Let's look into the sentences to understand it. You should try to lose some weight. So this is in present tense. When we use should in present tense, we follow the same structure as I told you, the basic structure. So if someone is trying to, if we find someone is obese, then we try to give them some advice that that's not good for health. So we try to tell them, you should try to lose some weight. Okay. Next we have, suppose we have to say something that's related to the past. Then in that case, suppose John was obese and he had faced some problems relating to obesity. Then we can say, since it's already in the past, so to say that, we have to structure it like this. John should have tried to lose some weight. Then he might have prevented those complications. So what is the structure? You have should, after that you have, and then the past participle form of the main verb. So here the main verb is not in the base form. If we use should for past tense, please keep that in mind. Should, then have, then the past participle form of the verb. That's how we change the structure when we use should in the past tense. Okay. Next we have the future tense. He should really start losing some weight. So here he should really start, see, the structure is the same. Should and then base form of the verb, and then the rest of the sentence, trying to depict that the action will be performed in the future. So present and future have the same formation of the modal verb should followed by the base verb, whereas in past tense we use should, which is followed by have, then the past participle form of the main verb. Okay. Next we have we should. So I've given two options. I'll tell you why. First, let's do it with should. We should have a strong law against such vandalism. So vandalism is not at all good. Hooligans who go and break or damage public property is absolutely against the law. So we should have a strong law against such vandalism, and should is sometimes replaced with ought to in such cases where we have to deal it more formally. So that's a more formal way of saying. We can also say we ought to have a strong law against such vandalism. Okay, these are the recommendations. Okay, the next one. Every citizen, here also we can go for the two options. We can say every citizen should worry about global warming, or to make it more formal, we can also say every citizen ought to worry about global warming. Okay, next we have for probability and expectations. So when something is probable, like there is a probability of its occurrence, or suppose you're expecting something to happen, in that case we use should. So let's look into the sentences. They started at 6 a.m. so they should be here any moment. So yes, early morning they started, and the time that is now, I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking and I'm deciding that by this time they should be here. So they should be here any moment. This sentence was in the present tense. Now, if we try to recollect something that's happened, already happens, that's in the past tense. So we can say, let's call Lucy. She should have reached home quite some time back. So see, here we have should have reached, because we are calculating the time that she had started quite early and she has already reached home. So now that I'm talking, she should be at home. So we have used the past tense. Let's call Lucy, that's the present part, but she should have reached home quite some time back. So she has already reached home, that's what we are assuming. So that's how we use should in past tense. You should have should, then have, and then the past participle of the main verb. Okay, next. Are they ready? The car should be here soon. So the car hasn't arrived. It's going to arrive in future. That means quite soon it's arriving. So in that case, you can again see we have the same formation, should, and the base form of the verb. So are they ready? The car should be here soon. Next we have they should win the match as they are a much stronger side. So this is an expectation since we are supporting the team and we know that the team that we are supporting is a stronger side than the other side with whom they are playing. So we are expecting that our team should win. So they should win the match as they are a much stronger side. Okay. Next we have for duty, correctness, obligations, etc. We also use should. He shouldn't have been so careless. So when we are trying to, correct someone, we've seen him to be very careless and we are not liking the fact that he is so careless. So we try to, correct him and tell he shouldn't have been so careless. Next, this is obligation that I should do it. I should be at office before 9 a.m. So I should always reach office before 9 a.m. That's my obligation, or that I'm duty bound, to my office to reach before 9 a.m. So I should be at office before 9 a.m. You should always wear your seat belts. This is also an obligation that, whenever you sit in a car, you should always wear your seat belts for safety's sake. Please remember that. Okay. You should pay attention in class. So that is also very much required when the teacher is teaching. You should pay attention in class. Okay. Now, one thing I must tell you, sometimes we use must, but must is a more, forceful way of saying. So if we want to make it more soft and more polite way to say, then we say should. For example, if I say, you must pay attention in class. So I can tell my students, but that's a more forceful way. But again, when the students grow up, then you have to deal with them with more softness and, handle them more politely, because if you are stern, then they might not like it. So you can then say you should pay attention in class. Okay. Next we have, should he be driving so rashly? So this is a question. So should starts the question. Should he be driving so rashly? So again, correctness, because he's driving rashly, we are not liking it. So we are questioning the fact that should he drive so rashly? Okay, the next one is as past of shall. So placed after past reporting verbs where shall is used in direct speech. So if you have a direct speech and there shall is used, so when we change that into indirect speech, shall is replaced by should. Okay. The direct speech is as, Sam said to me, you shall make the breakfast. Now, when we change this to indirect speech, it becomes, Sam told me that I should make the breakfast. So shall becomes should. Okay, let's look into another sentence. The direct speech is as, the officer said the fugitive shall be punished. Or he can also say the fugitive should be punished. So here it can either be shall, the fugitive shall be punished, or should, the fugitive should be punished. So in both cases, in indirect speech, it will be replaced by should. Okay, let's look into it. Indirect speech, the officer said the fugitive should be punished. So whether it's shall, if it's shall, obviously it will be should, but if it's should, then it remains should. Okay, the next one is, in formal English, it can be used with I or we in conditional clauses instead of would. So we generally tend to use would, but with first person, singular or plural, we can replace would with should, and that is to express possibilities or suppositions. For example, I should love to visit Switzerland if I had money. So yes, I don't have it, but if I had it, then I should love to visit Switzerland. You can also say, I would love to visit Switzerland if I had money. But with I and we can replace would with should. The next one is, we should be obliged if you could give us a lift. So again, if there is a possibility of you giving us a lift, then we should be obliged, or we would be obliged. Next, if I got the job, I should have to move to another city. So I haven't got the job. But if I do get it, it's conditional. So if I do get it, then I should have to or I would have to. Since it's I, so we can use should. I should have to move to another city. Okay. The next one is, should it rain, we'll have to postpone the trip to zoo. The next usage is as, is used in the main clause which are preceded or followed by conditional clause. So if there is a conditional clause before it or after it, in that case, in the main clause, we will be using should. And that is to express unreal conditions to give advice. For example, if I were you, I should complain against his misbehavior. So, what am I trying to say? This is unreal because I'm not you. But I'm trying to say that if I were in your shoes, then I wouldn't tolerate it. I should complain against his misbehavior. That means I'm trying to give the advice, that you should complain against his misbehavior, because if I were in your shoes, I would have. Okay, next we have, if I were you, I should accept the job offer. So yes, maybe to the person whom I'm talking to is in a dilemma whether to accept or not. So I'm trying to give the advice that I think the job offer is quite good and you should do it. So to give that person the feeling that I'm trying to advise her for good, so I, say it in this manner, if I were you, I should accept the job offer. So now you're learning various ways of using should, and you should practice them more and more and become more, fluent. Your language will become more enriched. The next sentence is, no, Molly, I shouldn't complain if I were you. So maybe Molly is very finicky and she's always, picky, this, that, no, I don't like this, and she's always complaining. So I try to give advice to Molly and tell her, no, Molly, I shouldn't complain if I were you. So if I were you, it's either preceding, or if it's, after the main clause, we use should in the main clause. Okay. The next one is, to show politeness in conditional clause usually used in formal communication. So when we have to communicate formally with somebody, so to show politeness, we use should. For example, in case you should need any help, here's the help desk's number. So that's a very polite way of, saying to a person. So when you need to say politely, use should. Okay, the next sentence, if you should decide to check out late, do let us know. Next, should you need more information, feel free to call us. So I think you have understood how to use should in a correct manner, and this will in fact help you to build up your English skills. So that's all for today. Hope I could give you some insight in using the modal verb should. Hope the lesson was useful. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section. I'll be back soon with a new video. Till then, take care, stay safe, and be happy.